Zog the Heilige teachings of the Likutei Halachos says in the parasha Shema Yisrael, Atem kroivim hayom lemilchama, al tiro. It says, listen Israel, you are close to war, don't be afraid. Now I'm not sure if you might feel like this in your own life, that you are close to war in every capacity, be it the parnosa, be it the world outside, be it in your own life, whatever war you may be fighting. The war inside. So he says, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Listen to what Rabbi Nassan tells us in terms of how not to be afraid. Ki hayiskola yisurim, all afflictions that a person may find in their life, again, all elements of constriction and affliction and anxiety, fear, God forbid, all of these things that feel so ichse, all of those things, he says, come ala adam b'zeh oilam shumali yisurim. They come onto a person. They're like, what are those things that come onto the whale?
Barnacles.
The barnacle, barnacles. So it feels like life is filled with these barnacles, God forbid, of yisurim. So he says like this, all of these elements come into this world, onto a person, and this world is filled with them, filled with barnacles. Kol zeh hu rak. You know why, Warren? All of this is only for one thing. Listen to this, Warren. Unbelievable teaching. Yeah, let us know when you're ready. So he says, all of this, zehu rak b'chtei sheyivrach ha'adam mehem el hatachlis. Okay, let's try and understand this. He says, all of this is only for us to be able to run from those spaces to the tachlis. What's the tachlis mean? What's tachlis mean? Yeah, tachlis is tachlis. What's tachlis? Tachlis? Tachlis is the point. Get to the bottom line. Get to the point. So all of the purpose of afflictions in the world is there to cause us to run to the point. Okay, what is the point? In Australia, there's something called the point. That's where everyone jumps off, unfortunately. They jump off the cliff there. That's called the point. That's not what we're saying here. We're not saying that the point they jump off a cliff into a large drop into water. It's unfortunate, and every 100 meters there's a little phone telling you to not kill yourself. Yeah, so that's not the point of these barnacles. It is not telling us to get to the tachlis, but what it's telling us is to run to a different point. It's there to achieve one purpose and one purpose only. Nullification. To nullify you. Nullify you. I'm not sure if you've ever played laser tag. Now in Australia we had a type of laser tag that you fight with the laser tag and then you run out of ammo. And you know what you need to do in order to re-energize the ammo? You need to run back to your base, re-energize, and then go out to battle again. And he's saying here again, Warren, that the purpose of all of the barnacles, all of these elements of Yisurim, she's reminding me of my Herzliya students. I have to put your phone onto lock here, buddy. So all of the purpose of these barnacles is to cause a person to run back to their base, to their tachlis. And their base and their tachlis is the energy force called bittul, nullification. To be able to nullify yourself to your source. Because through this, a person will merit to recognize and know Hashem. That's the whole reason of creation. The whole reason of creation is that we exist within this platform, and within this platform, there is an environment in which we have to nullify ourselves to the underlying nature of all existence. That's what we exist in this world for. to engage in doing, at the same time nullify to the backdrop, to the bedrock, which is the underlying bittul to the oneness of Hashem. Bagain dishmoidin lei. Ach achar kol kach kesheshav me'abitul az derech yisurim nisgabe b'yoyser vas misnach min al yisurin al yedei chidushay Torah shemamshichin maharshima shel abitul. Unbelievable. He says, now, just like our analogy with the laser tag, you come back, you get re-energized in the base, geschmack, and now I'm ready to go fight, I'm ready to shoot. And he says, after your bittul, after your nullification process, now you need to go out to war. It's a gewalt. Once you've nullified, now you've reached this unbelievable state of epiphany and clarity. As I told you many times, the scenario that we had one of the hostages in the tunnels that didn't know if his wife and children were alive. He spent 500 plus days in there, and he told me that his ultimate way of surviving was nullification. He nullified. He gave up. And not that he gave up. He came to a space where he let go entirely, and he accepted his death. Accepted his kid's death, his wife's, accepted everything. He nullified to Hashem. He said he reached one of the highest levels of spiritual awareness that he's ever experienced in his life. And the struggle that he has now is reintegrating back into society because of the levels of spiritual insight that he got to, because he was forced to completely nullify himself. That nullification gave him such epiphanies of what is. Now to come back into the world is unbelievably difficult. Yeah.
I'm just saying it's like the paradise story of the four rabbis.
Yeah, very hard to reintegrate. So the interesting thing is that it says that Yaakov, when he ran away from Yaakov had to run to Sukkoisa. Why did he have to run to Sukkoisa? It was a place of protection. It was a place of protection. We ask Hashem to protect us under the shadow of the sukkah. Why? Because you'll notice after the high holidays, which are all about nullification back to Hashem, that's the whole purpose of those days, is to nullify back to source. That's what Rosh Hashanah is. To be mamlich, to draw an awareness of Hashem being the ultimate source of all in you and around you. The danger is, after you come out of that space, you are so pure, everything starts to try and attack you. And that's why you have Sukkah straight after, to protect you. So he writes, same too, when a person nullifies themselves to Hashem, unbelievable, well done, really good stuff. But you know what the danger is? The danger is you come back into society, you come back into the mundane, and you are attacked on every level. So he says, you know what the only antidote, the true antidote to deal with that is something called Chidushay Torah. Chidushay Torah means you need to find novelty in Torah learning. If you find Chidushay Torah, not only novelty in Torah learning from what you've heard from others, but your own Chidushay Torah. You need to engage with studying of Torah and be like, oh, I've got some insight into this. I've got some creative energy, some juices flowing into this Torah element. When a person has Chidushay Torah, he says that is going to protect them, to draw their nullified space of deep spiritual epiphany and enlightenment into the battle zone. That is your ammo, he says. It's called something called Chidushay Torah. Now this is the danger, and I had a yid come to me in Australia, comes from a religious family, and he comes up to me and he says to me, he's also religious, comes up to me and he says, Rabbi, I have to tell you, I'm like really struggling with my Judaism. I'm like, okay, like what's going on? He says, like, I just, I don't feel connected, I don't feel like, So I said, simple question, I asked him, do you study Torah? No, I don't study Torah. So I said, well, you should start. He says to me, nah, I said to him, why not? He says, well, father never studied Torah. He's a religious guy, never studied Torah. It's not a big thing for us. I said to him, if you do not study Torah, you will not be able to ever feel a sense of connection. Because what Judaism is a very, very, very important vessel. And that vessel, when you have a vessel, but you have nothing inside the vessel, it feels very constrictive. And the whole purpose of the Torah and the mitzvahs is to create a vessel for you. But if you're not putting energy of expansivity through the study and the creativity engaged within Torah ideology and ideas, then a person starts to feel very constricted. That's God forbid.
I think it's too extreme. That side of it.
That what?
I
should study Torah.
Exactly, so they don't go there. I'm saying the closest thing that we've probably had in that moment of, let's say, connection, recalibrating, refocus, was COVID.
Yeah.
Lockdown.
Yeah.
Where suddenly you kind of
nullified.
Back within nullified basics.
Yes.
Protected.
Yeah. And then you come back out.
Come out exactly.
And it's like flip. What's going on? Like how you come into this space of deep awareness. Everyone's kumbaya. Everyone's like going to be a new humanity now. Loving each other. So nice to be able to see one's face and read one's lips. Unbelievable. And then it all comes to pits after. Probably even worse after. And that's the same when it comes to spiritual wisdom and consciousness, that we come to a space of nullification. Person comes to a recognition, gosh, I need to really just... You find this, when you find this on a weekly basis. Motzei Shabbos. Motzei Shabbos is brought in Kabbalah is one of the most difficult times because Shabbos is Shevis, it's all about return. It's all about grounding. It's all about coming into a state of hispatlus, of nullification before Hashem. Motzei Shabbos, Gewalt. I'm like, come from this pure energy of complete hispatlus, and I'm smack bang into this, the confusion of the week again. Very, very dangerous place. That's why you have to ideally have something called a Melava Malka. Melava Malka is where you sit down and you ground the energy with new food that you've made. And ideally at that Melava Malka to engage with Chidushei Torah, to engage with some sense of novel idea that grounds the energy of hispatlus into the week. Unbelievable concept. Now he says, we need to have strength, unbelievable strength and commitment to be able to achieve this. You know why? Because he says the unfortunate reality is a lot of people don't merit Chidushei Torah. A lot of people do not merit experiencing novelty within the study of Torah. They have a two-dimensional experience of Judaism, and you can smell it a mile away. And he says here, and then what happens is they are unbelievably distanced. When everything's flowing, great, I'm cool, I'm easygoing, I'll keep my Shabbos, I'll eat my kosher food, and I'll do whatever you want from me. But then when push comes to shove, and something, God forbid, creates a little bit of a rocky environment in their life, and they don't have Torah, they don't have Chidushei Torah, they don't have novelty in their study of Torah, wow, they have nothing to hold them. They have nothing to hold them. וכמו כן הוא בכל ענייני המניעס והבלבולים שיש לאדם המונים מויסם העבודת לספורח שזה עיקר ייסורי האדם וצריך האדם לסגב עליהם על ידי הסתכלוס אל התכלס ועיקר הוא בשבוין על האדם ייסורים המניעס ובמני האדם המונים שהם מדיחים מדבריהם הרעים מן האמס על ידי החסוסוס הפתויים הליצונוס ודברי קלקולוס שלהם עד שכם להטויס Gam das nirdaf mem chas v'sham neshanes rutzoyin b'li disakel al tachlis emes karoi. Unbelievable. He says what happens is when a person, God forbid, is afflicted in life, when a person has confusion in life, where those barnacles come in again. Barnacle is such an ugly word, isn't it? Anyway, so leeches, I like leeches, but barnacles, I just say like the barnacle. Anyway, these barnacles of life that come. And God forbid, a person starts to become confused. And what is necessary, now remember, the whole purpose of this system, okay, is to recalibrate. There's a concept of karma in the world. The concept of karma is not an Indian concept. It's a concept that comes from Judaism. That Hashem has created an environment and an energy force in the world to create an equilibrium, to draw everyone when they are getting out of whack back to themselves. I remember seeing a episode on Planet Earth. Have you ever seen Planet Earth? So there was this insane episode about ants, and there was this fungus that affected the ant. And have you ever seen it? It's the most geschmacke, gewaltige Zach. You see this ant like proper, like flipping out, turning into, he's like zombified, like he's like walking like a zombie, and he comes up the tree, and then he stops, he dies. And then they pause the camera, or they time lapse the camera, and you see a fungus start to grow out of his body, like this insane shofar, growing out of his head. And then it's coming out like branches, and then it pops, boom, and it releases all of these spores, and the spores go out and kill the entire population there of ants. And it's a inbuilt mechanism. When the ant colony is getting too big, Hashem created within nature to augment that growth by culling off those ants. Same too, we have a similar fungus that exists, a barnacle called Yisurim, God forbid, affliction. And these afflictions come in, God forbid, into a person's life when they grow too ahead of themselves, where they grow too much into the delusion that they're in control, and they forget about Hashem, that they become so subsumed by the world of doing and expanding that they forget that there is an essence and there is a tachlis and there is a source. And thus, what generally happens when a person is afflicted is they go the opposite direction. They try further and further and further to expand in unhealthy ways. They turn to food, they turn to addiction, they turn to unhealthy processes of vices of dealing with their state of feeling afflicted. And that's the danger here. That all Hashem wants us, as Rabbi Nachman taught elsewhere, he says if a person's being afflicted, God forbid, he says, you know what they need to do? Close their eyes, close their mouth, stop breathing, and pretend you've died. Pretend you've completely just relinquished all existence back to yourself, back to the source. Nothing else exists. Reset factory settings. That's what it's essentially saying with Yisurim. The big advice, if something's not working, reboot, switch it off, and then switch it on again, and most likely it's going to work again, And that's what Hashem is saying, sometimes something starts to not work in a person's life. All that means you have to switch off and realize you're nothing. You're actually nothing. Sorry to break it to you, you're nothing. In that nothingness, you discover your everythingness. And in that everythingness, you're able to re-engage with life. אף על פי כן, כשאדם מחזק בדעת מאוהד בידי האמס לאמיתו מבטל לעצמו באמס השם יסבר בכל פעם ונכלם אחדוסה יסבר באמס אז היינו מסיירי גם מניע יסביים עליו ומניע אדם. Unbelievable, he says. If you come back to this state of source, nothing ever worries you. It's impossible. It's impossible to have anxiety. It's impossible to have fear. Because what do you got to lose? If you're nothing, what do you got to lose? As the Meshech Chochmah says in the verse, Imani kan hakol kan. If I am here, everything's here. And you know what he says on that? If my ego is here, i.e., my perception of separateness from God, edging God out, is ego. If my ego is here, all is here. What's all? all the elements of affliction, anxiety, fear, depression, all of those elements stem from the delusion that I am separate to source. I am separate. There's something that I have self-preservation that I'm scared of losing. But if a person lets go entirely, then there's nothing to lose. As he says, Hashem li lo ira ma yaseh li adam. Hashem, we say this in Hallel, and we say it in Psalms, obviously, where we say, Hashem is for me, I am not afraid. Ma yaseh li adam. What can man do to me? I've got nothing to lose, because all I realize is I am part of the oneness. Shema Yisrael atem kroivim hayom l'milchama l'leveim afilu ein bechem ela zchus Shema Yisrael al yerech levavchem al tiru v'al tiratzim pneim haynu machash yesh behem zchus Shema Yisrael shu emunas hayichud. This is the unbelievable recognition. Are you ready for this? He says, back onto our verse, Shema Yisrael atem kroivim hayom l'milchama al tirol. Remember, it says, listen, O Israel, you are close to war, don't be afraid. In that is not a cute statement of Shema Yisrael similar to Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. It's a direct reference to Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. And the Gemara tells us, even if all you have is the merit of Shema Yisrael, even if all you have is the merit of Hira Israel Hashem Yisrael, in that space, Hashem is one is what is going to protect you. In that space of Hashem is one and there's nothing else of Hashem is one, that is what is going to protect you from feeling anxious and feeling afraid. Because there's nothing else. So a person again is confronted with anything to be afraid of. They say to themselves, you know what, Hashem, wherever you want me to go, whatever you want me to do, whatever you want to happen in my life, it's yours. I'm nothing. I'll do what I need to do. But at the end of the day, I relinquish. It's in your hands. I have nothing to lose at all. Because at the end of the day, it's all one. So nothing takes me away from that one. And that's exactly what he says. Shu emunas hayichud. Shebechinas habitul Hashem yisbach v'mesirus nefesh. Shuv al yerech levavchem avilim b'nei adam amoinim ki b'vayda b'chim v'chavshis u'mishu ha'chazak v'dach lezal tamil ha'tachlis ha'amiti v'yizko b'achdusi yisbarach shezeh b'chinas Shema Yisrael as b'vadai ein lo hisyare oid mishum oyev v'soine. If you have this, my friends, he says, this is exactly how you will be able to protect yourself for everything in life. Hashem should please God bless us to be able to return to our oneness and at the same time to retain that oneness through Chidushei Torah, to be able to engage with the expansivity that sprouts out from that oneness that is found in the novelty of learning Torah. Please God should be with bracha.